Hey everyone. So I've been gone for a season for a reason. Wow, I just feel nervous filming this right now. My stomach literally hurts. I didn't post any videos because I got a concussion. It was my second concussion. Luckily, it wasn't severe like my first one, so I got back into things pretty soon. I'm still having headaches though, and I just wanted to be safer rather than sorry. It's also why I was trying to get on a roll with posting on Instagram and all of that, and it just came to a halt, as it always does, it seems. But I am finally reading out loud again, and so far so good. So I want to keep posting chapters every week, and if something happens, I will update you this time. I'm more on my phone, getting less headaches from being on my phone, but that's why I haven't posted in a little bit. I honestly feel a little rough, a little gross, just a little out of it right now, but I didn't want to hold off from posting any longer, so I'm recording even though I'm not 100% energized. Thought I'd just be real with you guys about where I'm at. And hopefully you'll still be able to enjoy the chapters because I really love filming these. I really loved writing those chapters. And we're just at the beginning. We gotta keep going and get to some of the good stuff. But before we continue any further, I'm gonna need something for my thumbnail. So let's just try a few things here. Okay. Without further ado, here is chapter 4. Did I already post chapter 4? Am I on chapter 5? Chapter 5, On Center Street. For those reading along, that starts on page 68. If anything, Shelly hoped that she could have a normal night with her friends. A distractor to keep her mind off her worries. A knock sounded at their front door, to which Shelly opened. Guys, I'm starving, Amber said. Please tell me you're ready to eat. These energy bites aren't going to last me much longer. She shook her near-empty container of round peanut butter balls dotted with chocolate chips. John came up from behind Shelly. Do you guys want to drive or walk? Drive, Amber answered at the same time that Lucas said. Walk. Drive, he corrected. Up close, one could notice that Lucas's hands fidgeted in his pants pockets. The fidgeting acted like a contagion that passed on to Shelly. To satisfy herself, she tapped her shoes together twice. Okay, balls, so driving it is? Let's go, John said. The sun had dipped down and illuminated the colorful mountains with a pink light. Light bulbs lined the sidewalk, strung from lamppost to lamppost. The tan-bricked temple, structured like a small castle surrounded by flowers, glowed more brightly than any other building. Their group walked down the sidewalk across from the place of worship until the castle-like building disappeared, replaced by more rows of boutiques and cafes. The stout buildings they passed erupted with different noises. Folk music from a coffee shop acoustic night. Loud chatter from restaurants, expensive ones for well-established couples and cheap ones for nervous first dates. Stomping on the ground from boys in cowboy hats and girls in cowgirl shoes. Shelly and John used to walk around downtown at night, sometimes to talk, sometimes to explore. The place became a go-to for them after they had roamed the streets on one of their first dates. For a second, the hurt in Shelly softened as she remembered those good times, but came back stronger as the memories became a reminder that they no longer did those type of things. Any idea where you guys want to eat? Amber asked. Everyone either shrugged or shook their heads no. We could keep walking until someone sees something they like, Lucas suggested. Agreeing, the group continued to stroll past the shops. Amber and Lucas fell behind in pace, giving more consideration to each place they passed. John kept up with Shelly, who gave less than a glance to most places. As she walked next to a bench on the sidewalk, she ran her hand across his top. Do you remember our first date downtown? Shelly asked. John looked past her shoulder and Shelly followed his gaze. Amber and Lucas were held up, examining a menu at an Indian restaurant. I remember, he said. We sat on a bench and shared the worst and best moments of our life. It was when I got to know the deepest parts of you. John grabbed Shelly's hand. A tinge of sadness hit her. When it had been Shelly's turn to speak of the worst moment in her life, she had hesitated and decided to impart a bad moment with significance. Her parents' divorce. But the worst? That she never shared. Right. I remember that too. I was thinking more about the macarons we were eating, she said. Oh, I see. So you want to go to a French place? Shelly stepped away, regretting her choice to mention the memory. No, just thinking. It was nice back then. Back when we did stuff. A year of dating and 2 years of marriage, and this is what it became? Provo offered numerous options for dates, but they did nothing. No dancing, no soap making, no axe throwing. Actually, it was good she didn't have to throw an axe. With her kinesthesia, or lack of it, she would likely aim, throw, or step wrongly, and someone would end up in the ER. John let their hands drop. Well, money's been tight, he said. He kept his glossy eyes on Shelly, but she refused to make contact with him, refused to see the pity in them. Most of their money went to graduate school debt and medical bills. Once John had the time and Shelly had the will, they would both get jobs again. Until then, they relied on government funding and the remaining income John had earned from his summer internship. Their date stopped about the same time that their financial burden came, but why was just another thing she didn't want to think about. Most people in Provo are poor college students, Shelly said, but most people in Provo don't have the medical bills we do. The bones in Shelly's chest turned hard like wood, her teeth glued together. John reached out to her. It bothers me too, but it's just how it is. Their friends were coming close again. Shelly pulled away from John. Let's not talk about it. I was just remembering. Masking her pain, she moved on to a new topic and asked if Amber or Lucas saw anything appetizing. Nothing yet. The group stayed closer together as the sky darkened and the lights brightened. John asked Lucas about his music and his nearly finished first album. The songwriting, the song refining, and demoing process had taken 2 long years to complete, but this year Lucas finally had enough money to hire the producer he wanted and finish. While they talked, Amber listened intently and Shelly used her hearing capabilities effortlessly. As in, she put absolutely no effort into hearing what they said. Instead, to keep herself sane and not obsessing over the issue John had brought up, she sorted through paintings in her head. Girl with a pearl earring. American Gothic. Lady with an ermine. I probably said that wrong. Comment below if I said that wrong. An unfortunately unfinished painting by Sargent. Thankfully, he did finish. Carnation. Lily, Lily, Rose. A muffled sound came from the side. John had spoken clearly, but Shelly's ears had barely caught the utterance. It sounded like her name. She listened to the conversation again. I don't think she'll do it, John said. Dude, Lucas said. Shelly, it'd be great if you did the cover for my album. Shelly looked past John to see if Lucas showed symptoms of the flu or anything that might lead to delusion. Maybe his eyes could pass as crazed and not enthused. But he had no sweats, no discoloration. He was serious. The man thought Shelly could make a good album cover for him. Shifting her eyes to the ground, Shelly said, I don't know, Lucas. I'm not really into anything contemporary, and I mainly paint portraits. I don't do photography or graphic design. Lucas raised one of his bushy black brows. But you could paint a portrait of me? Shelly hesitated. Realistically? Yes. She could paint a portrait of Lucas as easily as a head chef could make bacon and eggs. At a minimum, she might reference a photo a handful of times, especially since she was already familiar with Lucas's features. However, even though Shelly knew she could do it, she didn't know if she could do it well. In all her other portraits, she had painted strangers. What if she finished and he didn't like it? She would have to see Lucas's face all the time and be reminded of her failure. Unfortunately, Lucas used her hesitation to his advantage. I will give you an album for free. Signed. He winked with the last word. John noticed the wink and rolled his eyes. Had he picked that habit up from Shelly? Another negative impact she was having on him. That's a pretty good deal, Shelly. Not sure how you're going to pass it up, Amber joked. After a time of staring at her shoes, Shelly conceded. I can paint you a cover. You might not like it, though. You'll like it, John interjected. I look forward to working with you, madame, Lucas said. When their group reached the end of the sidewalk, John pointed out a burger joint off Center Street. Amber and Lucas agreed to go without delay, and Shelly plastered a smile to her face, thinking about the amount of grease, burgers, and fries had. As they entered the diner, the door triggered a ding, signaling that customers had arrived. Wooden booths were on the raised floor to the right, and tables were on the lower floor. Orange and red colored the inside decor. A vibrant burger-shaped logo hung outside, and on the inside, black and white photos of Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn lined the walls. The televisions played different channels, from sports to news to kids shows. Of all the things surrounding her, Shelly absorbed the menu, took in all the food they offered and all the food they didn't. No salads, no soups, just burgers and sandwiches, fries and shakes, and onion rings. Holding her breath, she watched as her friends approached the cashier. Lucas went first, and John followed him like a magnet. They couldn't help but come together. After Lucas and Amber ordered their food, John stepped up. Like Lucas, he ordered 2 cheeseburgers, an imitation. Moving her feet with reluctance, Shelly made her way to Amber's side as John ordered fries and a drink. Similar to John, she felt a pull to be around her friend, though not strong enough to copy her decision. Not when Amber ordered a burger, too, with guacamole, melted Swiss cheese. Shelly's stomach grumbled. Her mind imagined the food. The two were teaming up against her. Stop this, she told herself. She knew better. She knew what this led to. Sitting at the table after a finished meal and feeling like an utter waste of a human. Complete guilt. The failure to make good decisions for her body. The betrayal of her body. The always later to come dreaded mirror checks to confirm her figure's demolition. Don't do that to yourself, Shelly thought. Make the right choice. choose the healthy food. Even if Amber felt comfortable ordering a burger, Shelly couldn't. Her only claim to exercise was her weekday walks to and from school. Even though her arm had an unusual endurance due to hours of brushing long, delicate, precise strokes onto a canvas, she could hardly count her art efforts as a workout. Now that she hardly painted, she couldn't count them at all. With so little physical activity, she felt she had no claim to the calorie-filled menu items. Sure, she knew her high metabolism rate would help her, but she didn't know what day that would end. Everyone was staring at her. She had taken too long to choose. The cashier hovered her finger over the screen, waiting with a face that had a little too much neutrality. A little too, this isn't awkward at all. Stepping up to the counter, Shelly slouched as she ordered. "I'll have the chicken sandwich," she said. "Healthy meat. Not bad, right?" After John paid for the food and grabbed a cup for the soda fountain, he slipped a smile to Shelly. She tried to not acknowledge it, afraid her friends would notice, would see her need for encouragement around food, would figure out that she had these peculiarities. For a Tuesday night, the place had a good turnout. Families ate sundaes, groups of teens burst out laughing at whispered jokes, and college students talked about all topics except for school. Even with the commotion, a few booths were empty, and the group found an open place on the raised floor near the window. The cashier brought their food to them in red baskets, and before Lucas had unwrapped his burger, he grabbed the hot sauce. As Lucas slathered it on, John watched with a sick look on his face. Lucas paused and shifted his attention off his food. "You want some?" He shook the hot sauce. "I'm good. That's all yours," John said. Both Lucas and Amber started eating their food. Succumbing to the social environment, Shelly picked up her sandwich. Turning off her thoughts, she bit into it and tried to forget her worries from before. One person had yet to begin eating. John's first burger lay unwrapped in its basket. Outside had felt warm, and regardless of his efforts to enjoy the stroll, he had held on to the promise of air conditioning. Air conditioning blew on him at the moment, and it didn't help. Add in his stomach's recent protests, and John had little physical motivation for picking up the burger. He wondered if eating that second sandwich had made him abnormally full. It didn't seem likely, but if it were the case, Shelly would find out, and then she'd feel bad he chose to make another lunch to counterbalance the sandwich she had made for him. John would sooner kill a spider before he'd risk hurting his wife's feelings in public on a date with friends. And John couldn't kill spiders. He chose peace and transported them from the apartment back to the outside. That, and it would be a waste of money if he didn't eat at least one of his burgers. In small, slow movements, John swayed side to side, hoping to shift the food down and make room for more to come. Despite his tenuous efforts, his swaying didn't go unnoticed. "What are you doing?" Lucas waited for a reason to laugh, thinking it must have been a joke. John couldn't come up with anything witty to say. He stopped swaying. "Huh?" He feigned oblivion. Nothing. Sweat glazed his palms and he smeared them across his jeans. Why did he feel so hot? Giving a horrible impression of happiness, John stared into his food, trying to shake his upended nerves. With grace, Amber switched the topic and discussed the recent changes in Lucas's performance details, mentioning that his album might have a delayed release. Shelly pitched into the conversation, a bird chirping softly and as frequently as the melody needed. "Wait, how come?" Chirp. "Oh, I thought you already had earned the money." Chirp. "What do you think you'll need to put it toward?" Chirp. Lucas and Amber physically braced themselves to answer the final question. "Actually, we had something we wanted to tell you guys," Amber said. They paused. The rhythm of the conversation had fallen offbeat. Regardless of Shelly's social efforts, a conversation without John was like music without bass. Based on their watchful eyes, the others had noticed his lack of participation. John knew that they knew he could not be full from a single sandwich eaten hours ago, even if the cheese and meat came from a cow god. "Are you okay?" Shelly asked. John gave a crooked thumbs up. "Are you sure?" Shelly pointed at John's overflowing plate, and he tried to manage an answer sufficient enough to reassure and avoid drawing attention. But his thoughts moved through molasses. Lucas and Amber followed Shelly's finger of doom to John's basket. "Something wrong with your food?" Lucas asked. "No." John struggled to find an honest excuse. "I think I'm full from that sandwich earlier." Technically not a lie, John thought as he wiped perspiration off his face. With a prompt, Lucas tried to let the conversation drop. Unaware, Amber picked it back up. "I don't understand how you could be full after a sandwich. I feel like I'm always hungry, except for in the mornings." Lucas quickly brought his lips into a line, muting himself. "What?" Shelly exclaimed, dropping the onion in half of her chicken sandwich. "You always tell me breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I started eating it again, you know." "That's great," Amber said. "But you're not eating it," Shelly said. Amber stirred a frying ketchup. Things changed. Grabbing a handful more of fries, she stuffed the food into her mouth, looking away. "Does this mean I can go back to eating Pop-Tarts when I wake up?" "Totally," Amber said, covering her mouth as she chewed. "If you want to. I never told you to stop. I just said you should eat more." Wiggling again, John decided he had enough room to cram in his food. Assured that his interrogation had ended, he talked between mouthfuls. "Wait, so what's wrong with breakfast?" "Nothing." Amber said. John kept eating at an increasing rate, realizing that if he stopped, he may not be able to start again. Maybe we should do breakfast next time. Maybe, Amber said. Actually, back to what we were saying earlier. Before she could continue, John had lost all willpower to continue on. He had guessed that at one point he wouldn't be able to keep the food going in, but he forgot the food could come out. His fair skin paled while sweat glistened from his forehead to his neck to his palms. John made eye contact with Shelly for half a second and swept himself out of the booth. Is he okay? Lucas asked. Everyone watched him dash out the front door and heard the bells ding, overcome by the noise of a man retching his guts out. The door closed and a silence fell. Shelly wanted to return to the time when she popped 2 strawberry pastries into the toaster. Joy came from switching between plopping the sprinkles into her mouth to biting into the warm, gooey center. Shelly also convinced herself that she couldn't return to that life. Too much processed sugar. She leaped off her chair when John ran out, and when he fell to his knees, puking, she rushed out the door. The trash can smelled unholy. Their friends stood by them, offering any moral support they could. In the restaurant, people shifted in their seats, a few pushing their food away from them. 2 even swung their legs out of their booth, likely debating if they could provide amateur medical assistance. One mom left, walking to the front and sticking her head out the door. Shelly, like a puppy with a thorn in its paw, looked up in anticipation of help. Hi, the woman said, moving long, dark braids out of her face. Is he okay? What could Shelly say? They hadn't discussed John's barfing circumstance yet. Giving the lady a slanted thumbs up, John intervened. Ate too much. He coughed. Maybe a stomach bug. Ate too much? Shelly didn't understand how 1 burger was too much. The woman raised her eyebrows. So it wasn't the food? Her braids swished as she tilted her head back toward the diner. Everyone in the group glanced at one another. We're all fine, Lucas said. And I got the same thing as him. Great. The woman waved to John as she left. Feel better, sweetheart. With the interruption over, Shelly crouched next to John's prostrate figure. As he clung to the garbage bin, she rubbed her hand up and down his back, his sweat-laden t-shirt sticking to her hand. With no way to heal or help, Shelly felt insufficient once again. Lucas crouched down on the other side of John. Even his tan face had paled at the shock of the event. He glanced up at Amber and then focused back on John's condition. Should we go to the hospital? Amber asked. As John's lips puckered, about to respond, his body convulsed and let out a, not quite, dry heave. He spit into the trash can and waved the idea of the hospital off. As Amber caught a whiff of John's lunches and dinner, she stepped back. I need to go. In a few steps, she disappeared into the diner's restroom. Maybe we should take you somewhere like urgent care, Shelly said. No, don't get anyone, John said. What? John, honey, you're sick. We need to get you checked out. At the word honey, a weak smile surfaced on John's face. No. He paused and brought a fist up to his mouth. After belching, he resumed. I'm not sick. I'm just overfull. Amber walked uneasily out of the diner, staying a few feet from John. She leaned against the brick exterior, listening. Overfull, Shelly said. It was just 1 burger. I made myself another sandwich after you left. You didn't eat my sandwich? Shelly stopped, moving her hand along his back. No, I did. But I also ate another one. I thought I could continue. He paused to gather himself again. I thought I could continue the charcoal meal with less charcoal. I didn't want to make you feel bad. Tucking her hair behind her ears, Shelly stopped to think. It didn't make sense that John would get full to the point of puking, even with the extra sandwich. After all, John had over 6 feet of him to fuel. Once, at a Thanksgiving with his family in Ohio, Shelly witnessed him casually intake 4 slices of pie, after eating 2 full plates of turkey, cranberry sauce, stuffing, mashed potatoes, and green bean casserole. Later that day, he trotted off to play basketball. There were no negative physical effects. Maybe stress had taken a toll on him, she thought. Last night had been anything but peaceful. Are you sure it's just because you're full? Shelly said. You're not exactly a light eater. John moved his eyes down. For a second, Shelly thought she had hurt his feelings, but when he spoke, his voice sounded level. You're right, he said. Probably just a stomach bug. Amber and Lucas shifted toward each other, giving one another an anxious glance. Noticing their uncomfortable exchange, Shelly assumed that her friends felt unsure what to do. If they should stay to help, leave to give them space, leave to avoid getting sick. Visually examining John, Shelly decided that he could likely make it back to the booth. Walking to the car would take him a while, considering his condition, and it wouldn't improve his circumstances. He could rest inside while she got the car, dropped off their friends, and drove back to the diner to pick him up. All parties agreed to the plan. The friends led the way while Shelly helped John stay stabilized, although he held most of his own weight. When she looked around the diner, she saw a few concerned faces, the backs of many heads, and the mother with long braids running over her shoulder, giving one last assessment and returning to her family. Redirecting her gaze, Shelly moved up to the raised floor. She decided to stop looking around, as she might give someone another unusual glance and didn't want to give anyone the wrong idea. She was fine. John would be fine. The booth became a safe haven as they entered into its support. John sat on the inside by Shelly, but made the effort to reach out and push his food away. Everyone sat in silence. John stared out the window. Amber and Lucas stared at him. Soon it seemed they might end up as clammy as him. Shelly realized she needed to grant them freedom. I'm really sorry about how this went. We didn't want to ruin dinner. Look, you guys don't need to stick around. If you'd rather walk, that's fine. I'm going to sit with John for a few minutes and then go get the car. No need to feel guilty, she thought. Okay. Amber nodded her head distractedly. Seriously, don't feel bad. If you want to, you two can go. Wait, John said. You guys wanted to say something. He belched. Sorry, I interrupted it. The newlyweds' eyes skipped around the room until they met each other's. Lucas switched his attention to John. How are you feeling? Feverish, but not bad. Like you just threw up? Yeah. John confirmed, as amused as his spoiled state could allow. Feel like you're gonna throw up again? Lucas asked. Not yet. Lucas sucked in a breath, held it, and exhaled. We have news. Shelly searched for a clue in from John, but received none. A few scenes passed on the television nearest to them, while no one said anything. Breaking the silence, Amber said, John, are you sure you're okay? I'm not perfect, but I'm doing okay. What is it? Coating her face with joy, Amber turned to Lucas. A moment passed, and then she said, We had a bit of a happy accident. She paused. We're pregnant. Suddenly, Shelly felt like the sick one. End of chapter. End of chapter. Tune in next week for chapter 6, and maybe you'll find out why Shelly feels sick. Maybe you won't. Who knows? And thank you for tuning in after my hiatus. I hope y'all are doing good, and I really appreciate your patience. Love you all. Have a good week, a good rest of your day, maybe a good rest of your hour. Bye.